today with Tony Gastrich. He is actually my father-in-law, and he spent years and years being a firefighter, paramedic all throughout Cincinnati. So I'll just pass over to him and let him introduce himself, give his credentials. So there you go, Tony.
Hi, Tony Gastrich. I was in the fire service for 27 years. 18 of those were full-time with Springfield Township and finished off my career at Anderson Township. But I worked numerous part-time jobs from Marymont to Sycamore Township to West Jed to Springdale and also Springfield Township before they hired me full-time. Then I moved over to Anderson Township in 2002 and I retired from Anderson Township. Paramedic for 23 of those years. 24 of those years. I retired in 2018, and pretty much it.
Yeah. Well, the reason I'm interviewing today is a project we're doing, and I actually wrote about preventable fire service deaths in the fire service and ways that we can prevent them, and things from advancing technology to being more proactive instead of reactive when it comes to firefighters dying and building codes and fire codes, how things change in that aspect. And through your time in the fire service, I feel like you're around for a lot of technological changes that move very rapidly. I feel like technology moves in a very exponential manner, and you're around to see a lot of big changes that came in the fire service. So during your time, was there any pushback that any of the guys had when it comes to the technology? Were they that fire service culture of, yeah, this is how we've always done it, we don't need these new fancy technologies to help us? Did you ever come across anything like that in your time?
Well, a lot of the trainings that we go through are based on actual firefighter deaths.
Mm-hmm.
So once the reports come back and they find that, look, this person didn't survive because we couldn't get out of this situation, the fire service tends to work with that and try to teach firefighters how to cope with those same type of incidences, like the Denver drill or the Nash drill.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what we have found later, what we found back with pushback is that I grew up in the age of the fire service where your gear was your badge of honor,
Mm-hmm.
and the dirtier it was, the more people would say that was the most respectable time, was to see how much dirt you had on your gear. But we have found out that one of the most simple technology portions of the fire service was overlooked, and it was just washing our gear to prevent cancer deaths from carcinogens. Usually most firefighters, they like some type of technology to help them. The thermal imaging camera was huge. Went from a big box to almost a little pin light thing where you can carry around, and sometimes you can even have them on your helmet. They're so small. We liked some of those things because it did help us in situations where we couldn't see. But one of the basics things was using a washing machine.
Yeah.
We found out that after a fire, it was very necessary to just wash your gear, and that took a lot of the old timers a little bit to figure out that, oh, you know what, I might live from this a little bit longer and not have the cancers that are prevalent with the carcinogens of just, you know, what you're wearing and what you're bringing into your ambulance or your fire truck or back to your fire station. Keeping our fire gear inside of our bunk room so we could quickly get in it to get to a fire. We weren't allowed to do that any longer. So pushbacks with technology, I think a lot of the firefighters, I personally enjoyed seeing technology come in and play. I go back to the thermal imaging again. One big bulky thing to a lot smaller thing to help us save lives. Doing the fire training drills of what past firefighters had passed from. Am I getting some of the answers you're looking for?
Yeah, definitely. I just graduated fire school, so I haven't really been in the firehouse in seen it. I just go what I've read and what I've been taught. So like, have you heard of Dr. David Griffin? He
Nope, I don't think I've heard that name.
He's a firefighter in North Carolina, and the Charleston Eight that died in that. Yep, he was there, and
Okay.
that was like early in his career, and he all this stuff. But he said in his first ever fire, his officer had him put a wet sponge in his mouth instead of using their SCBA. So, not being like a firefighter that's done it for years, like I hear those things like, oh, is that something that happens often? Like people, the old timers pushing back like that, but the way you put it, seems like people are a lot more receptive to the change of the technology, which is good.
Well, there's one thing certain about the fire service is that it constantly changes.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly learning new things to help with life safety. Um, one of the things I did and then really enjoyed was the life safety aspect of it, going out and doing fire inspections of buildings that were used by the public to make sure that they were safe, and knowing a lot of people won't say that they like knowing fire code, but it was something I was interested in. And again, go back to fires and huge catastrophes that brought us in to what a lot of our fire code is now. Beverly Hills Supper Club was a fire that happened in the 70s that there was a lot of locked doors there. So knowing that exits cannot be locked or blocked to keep people from escaping, I mean, those things needed to be law, of course.
Yeah,
Um,
that was
you
the
know, and
thing I said
I'm
more
sorry,
about being proactive instead of reactive. It's unfortunate that most of the changes that we make that save lives are because people had to die in the first place. So.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that a lot of the drills we do and a lot of the code we do is because of deaths, and that's why it gets pushed to happen. But there's other things that happen. I'll give you an example. Using a fog nozzle inside of a structure instead of a straight stream. When I first got into the fire service, it was all fog nozzle, fog nozzle, fog nozzle. And then it went back to change a little bit to be more direct to the fire with straight streams, to be more effective of knocking fire out. And then there was the old adage of, look, if you use a fog nozzle, you're going to push fire one way or another if you do it through an open window. Well, they study this back and forth, and fortunately, there's places that allow other fire departments to go in and do training on buildings and just test those things. And I know that there was a group of buildings in somewhere in the northwest or northeast, I'm sorry, near Boston or somewhere, but they had a group of townhomes that were built the same. They were brick structures. They were set up the same, so they could actually go in and test different theories on fire behavior and how to put that fire out through either straight streams or how would smoke travel and how would heat travel. And they set the room on fire the same way. And they tested all of that stuff. So some of it can be proactive if everything falls into place, and you have training officers and training staff that will foresee, hey, let's try these things and see what works. And they found out that it's hard to push fire with that type of nozzle. So getting the old timers to switch from one to the other is just putting them in the situations, showing them the proof.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even say old timers. It's just people that are new, but it's how they were taught. Like, put a sponge in your mouth. I've never heard of putting a sponge in my mouth. But we do know that SCBAs are restrictive. They don't give you 100% of what your open mouth breathing in can do. It's a positive pressure, but it's not 100%, and it's something you have to get used to as well. And if the old timers didn't want to wear their mask, that's why we had a life expectancy of about 70 years old for firefighters. Hopefully, with technology and changing that, the group like you won't have to have that grim outlook of, am I really going to live only to 70?
Yeah.
No, you're not, because the fire service does make changes, and they do put life and safety and firefighter behavior and firefighter safety first. not fire behavior, but fire safety first above all. The longer we can keep our firefighters around, to teach, the guys coming in like you, the things that were going to keep us, you know, play baseball with your grandkids, or in your case, lacrosse.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Maybe that helps you.
Yeah.
That helps you in your quest.
Yeah. This was awesome. Is there anything else you want to add in before we end the interview?
No, that I hit all the bases you wanted me to hit.
Yeah. Yeah. This was great. So, again, want to thank you very much for sitting down with me over FaceTime to do this interview. Uh, and thanks, Larry Bennett, put on a great class. This is our final, so this is the end of my legal aspects class. So thanks for everything this semester, Larry. And that'll about wrap it up.